The Florida Keys, a paradise of sun-drenched beaches, turquoise waters, and swaying palms. A place where tourists arrive in endless waves, chasing sunsets, cocktails, and the promise of escape. By day, the islands sparkle like jewels dropped carelessly into the sea. But by night, the Keys transform. The laughter fades, the crowds thin, and what lingers is something far darker. Narrow streets that twist between colonial houses begin to whisper. Old wooden docks creak with footsteps that never belonged to the living. And the endless ocean, surrounding everything, hides secrets so deep they may never be uncovered. It is here, among the coral reefs and the crumbling old buildings of Key West, that stories of disappearance echo louder than the crashing waves. Stories that have been told for decades, some too frightening to speak of out loud. Stories of people, ordinary people who stepped into the Florida Keys and were never seen again. Tonight, we dive into 5 of those stories. 5 vanishings that remain unsolved, unexplained, and unforgettable. 5 cases that turned paradise into nightmare. These are the 5 missing persons cases that still haunt the Florida Keys. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another journey into the shadows. Every week, we bring you stories of the strange, the chilling, and the unknown. Stories that demand to be heard. Tonight's tale. Gone might just keep you awake long after the sun goes down. The Florida Keys are more than just a vacation spot. They are a chain of islands stretching like a crooked finger into the Gulf of Mexico, tethered to the mainland by a fragile string of bridges. On one side, the warm waters of the Gulf. On the other, the endless Atlantic. And surrounding it all, a history that refuses to be buried. Long before tourists filled Duval Street with neon lights and rum-soaked laughter, the Keys were dangerous. Hurricanes ripped through with terrifying force. Shipwrecks littered the coral reefs. And pirates prowled the waters with greed and cruelty. For every smiling postcard of a sunset, there is a darker story of lives lost, of bodies never recovered, of ships vanishing without a trace. Even today, the Keys hold a reputation that unsettles those who stay long enough to listen. Locals whisper that the islands are thin places, where the barrier between the living and the dead wears away with the tide. Some speak of the ghost of a murdered wrecker haunting the reefs, his lantern seen flickering beneath the waves. Others say entire stretches of highway are cursed, their asphalt soaked in blood and tragedy. And then, there are the disappearances. The Keys are a perfect setting for someone to vanish. Surrounded by water, the islands are both connected and cut off. A person can step into a bar, a dive boat, or a hotel, and within hours be gone, swallowed by sea or shadow. The cases we will share tonight are not just statistics. They are people who lived, loved, and laughed until one day they vanished into the silence. What makes these stories endure is not just the mystery of how they disappeared, but the eerie similarities that connect them. Sudden vanishings, no evidence, no answers, as if the Keys themselves had claimed them. Picture it. You are standing on a pier in Key West. The night air is thick with salt and humidity. A warm breeze carries the faint sound of music from the bars nearby. You look out across the water, expecting to see only darkness. But there, just for a second, you swear you see something else. A figure. A light. A shape moving where no one should be. That is the atmosphere of the Keys. A place where paradise and nightmare are separated by nothing more than the fall of night. And it is here that our first story begins. Case 1. The diver who never returned. The ocean around the Florida Keys has always promised adventure. Beneath the rolling waves lies another world, one of coral cathedrals, shipwrecks swallowed by time, and caverns that seem to stretch into eternity. To divers, it is paradise. But like every paradise, it has its shadows. In the summer of 1997, a man named Tom Delaney arrived in Key Largo. Tom was no stranger to the water. A former Navy diver, he had logged more hours underwater than most people spend driving in their lifetime. To his friends, he was calm, experienced, and unshakable. He knew the dangers of the sea, but he also trusted his own skill. That July, Tom chartered a small dive boat with a group of friends. Their destination, the famous Blue Hole, a submerged sinkhole in the reef, a place known for its beauty, And it's danger. The hole drops hundreds of feet straight down, a yawning mouth in the ocean floor. Locals warned that it was not a place for the careless. Its walls twist into hidden passages, and its currents can pull even the strongest swimmer into silence. But Tom was not afraid. The morning of the dive was calm. The sun rose over a glassy ocean, and the crew prepared their gear with routine precision. Witnesses say Tom joked with the others as he checked his tank and secured his mask. His last words before entering the water were casual, even cheerful. "See you in a bit." He descended smoothly, slipping beneath the surface with ease. His dive partner followed close behind, but within minutes, Tom had disappeared from view. At first, no one thought much of it. Divers often separate briefly, exploring their own paths before regrouping. But when his partner resurfaced after 20 minutes, Tom was nowhere to be found. The boat crew waited. Minutes stretched into half an hour. Then an hour. And still, no sign of him. Search teams were dispatched immediately. Helicopters swept the surface of the water while divers scoured the sinkhole's depths. What they found only deepened the mystery. Tom's dive slate, used for underwater notes, was discovered lodged against a rock ledge about 90 feet down. Written on it were 3 words: light, tunnel, wrong. The words chilled investigators. What tunnel had he seen? Some believe Tom had found one of the rumored underwater caverns branching off from the blue hole, a labyrinth known to trap divers in darkness. If he had followed the light, perhaps mistaking it for the exit, he may have been pulled deeper into a cave system with no way back. But if that were the case, where was his body? Days of searching yielded nothing. His gear was intact, his tank later recovered half full of air, abandoned. But Tom himself was gone. It was as though the sea had opened its jaws and swallowed him whole. Theories sprang up immediately. Some insisted he would drown in one of the hidden caverns, his body still entombed somewhere in the limestone. Others whispered about stranger explanations, phantom lights that lure divers to their doom, or the idea that Tom had been pulled into a current leading to an undiscovered depth. But there was one detail that unsettled everyone who knew him. Tom was not reckless. He was meticulous, careful, the kind of diver who always had a plan. For him to follow a mysterious light seemed out of character, unless what he saw was real, undeniable, and impossible to resist. Even now, divers who visit the blue hole sometimes claim to see flashes of light in the depths, a pale glow like a lantern swinging in the black. They tell stories of hearing muffled knocks on their tanks, as though someone is trying to get their attention from the darkness below. Some call it superstition. Others believe it is Tom Delaney forever trapped, or forever trying to warn the living away from the tunnel that took him. His family never recovered his body. To this day, his disappearance remains one of the Key's most unsettling mysteries. A man who spent his life mastering the sea, undone by something he could not explain. And in the stillness of the blue hole, as sunlight filters down and fades into black, many divers say they feel it too, that the ocean there remembers him, that it waits for the next soul to follow the light into the dark. Case 2. The tourist couple who vanished on Duval Street. Key West is a place built on contradictions. By day, it is sunlight and color parrots squawking in palm trees, fishermen hauling in their catch, and tourists spilling out of shops with souvenirs clutched in their hands. But by night, Duval Street comes alive in a different way. Neon signs buzz to life, spilling pinks and blues across the cracked sidewalks. Bars open their doors wide, music pours out in waves, and strangers weave together in a dance of rum, laughter, and late-night secrets. It is a carnival of excess, a place where memories blur and inhibitions vanish. But sometimes, people vanish too. In March of 2002, a young couple, Michael and Sarah Turner, traveled from Ohio to Key West for what was meant to be a week of sun and celebration. They were newly engaged, glowing with the kind of excitement only young love carries. Their families later recalled how thrilled they were for the trip. It was to be their escape from the cold, a slice of paradise, to mark the beginning of their lives together. For the first few days, everything seemed perfect. Photos show them smiling on the beach, posing with frozen drinks, walking hand in hand through Mallory Square. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they sent postcards home, promising stories when they returned. But they never did. On the night of March 12th, Michael and Sarah were seen at a popular Duval Street bar called the Green Parrot. Witnesses say they laughed, danced, and left together sometime after midnight. heading in the direction of their hotel just a few blocks away. The walk should have taken less than 10 minutes, but somewhere between the bar and their hotel room, they disappeared. Security cameras caught fleeting glimpses of them on their route. At 12:17 a.m., they appeared on a street corner, Michael's arm draped over Sarah's shoulder. At 12:19, another camera captured them crossing a narrow alleyway. And then nothing. The next morning, hotel staff noticed their room had not been slept in. Their suitcases were still neatly packed, untouched. Their rental car sat in the lot, keys inside. Everything suggested they would never made it back. Police launched an immediate search. Flyers were posted, bars questioned patrons, and the FBI even got involved. Yet no trace of the couple was ever found. No witnesses reported hearing a struggle. No cameras showed where they went, and no physical evidence was ever uncovered. It was as if the streets had simply swallowed them whole. Theories began swirling. Some believed the couple had been targeted by human traffickers, abducted in the chaos of the nightlife. Others suggested they would fallen victim to a crime of opportunity robbery gone wrong, their bodies hidden somewhere in the labyrinth of old Key West buildings. But without evidence, every theory dissolved into speculation. Then came the whispers. Locals claimed Duval Street has a history of shadows. They spoke of an unseen hunter that stalks the alleys after midnight. An old tale describes a figure in a wide-brimmed hat, said to lure drunk tourists away from the main road, never to be seen again. Most dismiss it as folklore, a story told to scare newcomers. But those who live above the shops and bars, those who hear the street when it is nearly empty, swear there is truth in it. What made the Turners' case even stranger was the sudden halt of their trail. Cameras do not just stop working in one specific block, yet none caught their final steps. It was as if they had walked into an invisible void. To this day, visitors walking down that same stretch of Duval Street claim to feel uneasy. They describe sudden chills, the sensation of being followed, or hearing footsteps echoing behind them when no one is there. A few even swear they have seen a couple hand-in-hand glimpsed in reflections or just at the edge of sight, always turning a corner before vanishing. Whether these are ghosts of the missing, shadows of imagination, or something darker, no one knows. What is certain is that Michael and Sarah Turner were real. They laughed, they loved, and they walked those streets one final time. And somewhere, in the maze of Key West, the answer to their fate still waits in silence. Case 3. The Sailor and the Phantom Ship. The sea gives and the sea takes away. For as long as humans have set sail, stories have drifted back of ships found empty, crews vanished, meals left unfinished. They are called ghost ships, and their mysteries always ignite the imagination. The Florida Keys have one of their own. In May of 1983, a 42-year-old sailor named Richard Hanley set out from Marathon Key in his small sloop, the Magnolia. Richard was known by everyone at the marina. A quiet man with weathered skin and salt in his veins, he had spent years on the water. Sailing was not just his hobby, it was his life. That morning, he told dock hands he was heading out for a short trip, a simple overnight journey to test new rigging on his boat. He promised to be back the next afternoon. His supplies were modest, food for 2 days, fresh water, and a notebook he always carried. Just a quick sail, he said. But Richard never returned. 3 days later, fishermen spotted the Magnolia drifting aimlessly near the reef line, its sails slack, rocking gently with the waves. When they boarded, they found a scene that has haunted the Keys ever since. The cabin was in order. A pot of coffee still sat on the stove, cold, but half full. Richard's logbook lay open on the table, a final entry written in his neat handwriting. Something in the water. Circling the boat. And then nothing. No next page, no explanation. The food stores were untouched, his life jacket still hanging on the hook. The radio was functional, yet no distress call had been made. His wallet and personal items were all there. But Richard was gone. Authorities launched a search, combing the surrounding waters, even dragging areas of the seabed, but no body was ever found. To this day, his disappearance remains unsolved. Theories multiplied quickly. Some believed Richard had fallen overboard, swept away by current. But skeptics pointed out he was too experienced to make such a mistake, especially so close to shore. Others whispered of smugglers who at the time prowled the waters of the Keys, moving drugs and desperate to silence witnesses. But it was the logbook entry that kept people awake at night. Something in the water. Circling the boat, fishermen in the area began to share their own stories of nights when their vessels were followed by silent shapes beneath the waves, of strange disturbances in the water when no sharks or dolphins were near. Some spoke of a massive shadow that moved too quickly, too deliberately, as though it were watching. Then came the sightings. Over the years, other sailors claimed to see the Magnolia long after it was recovered and brought to shore. Out on misty nights, a lone sloop would appear, drifting quietly, its lantern swinging though no one stood at the helm. Boats that approached swore they saw a man on deck, waving, only for the figure to vanish when they drew near. Locals began calling it the ghost boat of the Keys. Even today, some who sail near Marathon say they hear tapping sounds against their hulls, like knuckles rapping wood. A few report seeing words written in condensation on cabin windows, short, unfinished sentences, as if someone is still trying to complete the log Richard left behind. What was circling his boat that night? A predator of the sea? A human threat? Or something that does not fit into either world? The ocean keeps its secrets well. Richard Hanley vanished into its silence, leaving behind nothing but a drifting boat, a pot of coffee, and one chilling line in his journal. And perhaps, when the waves are calm and the night is dark, the Magnolia still sails, searching for the sailor who never came home. Case 4. The runaway teen who became a legend. Highway US 1 is the only road that binds the Florida Keys together. It stretches like a lifeline from Key Largo all the way down to Key West, a narrow ribbon of asphalt suspended over miles of open water. Drive it during the day, and it feels like freedom, endless blue skies above, turquoise seas shimmering below. But at night, the road changes. Darkness presses close. The ocean becomes a black void on either side, and the headlights of your car carve through emptiness, illuminating only what is directly in front of you. For drivers who make the journey after midnight, it can feel like they are utterly alone. Except, sometimes they are not. The story begins in 1979 with a girl named Emily Reyes. She was just 17 years old when she left her home in Miami and tried to make her way south. Emily was restless, caught between the innocence of youth and the defiance of independence. She had fought bitterly with her parents that summer, leaving behind a note that simply read, "I need to find my own way." Her plan, as far as anyone knew, was to hitchhike through the Keys. Friends later said she talked about finding work in a bar in Key West, or maybe joining a group of musicians who played in the streets. She had dreams, but no map. The last confirmed sighting of Emily was near Islamorada. A truck driver claimed to have seen her thumbing for a ride by the side of the road just after sunset. She was wearing cut-off jeans, a white tank top, and carried a small backpack. He did not stop. Others later reported seeing her further south along the highway, but those sightings were never verified. And then nothing. Emily Reyes was never seen again. The search for her was frantic at first. Police canvassed gas stations, bars, and motels along US 1. Helicopters scanned the mangrove thickets. Volunteers walked mile after mile of roadway. Yet no trace of her was ever uncovered. Her parents clung to hope for years, refusing to change her bedroom, leaving the light on in case she came home. But the years turned into decades, and Emily became something else. Not just a missing person, but a legend. Drivers began to report strange encounters on the highway. They told police they had seen a teenage girl standing by the roadside, arm extended, thumb pointed south, always south. Sometimes she was barefoot, sometimes she clutched a backpack. A few swore they stopped to pick her up, only to open the door and find the seat beside them empty. The stories spread. Truckers gave her a name, the Hitchhiker of Islamorada. Some insisted she was a restless spirit, doomed to wander the highway she never finished traveling. Others believed she was alive, hidden somewhere, darting in and out of sight. The strangest part, nearly every driver who reported seeing her described the same thing. Her eyes, wide, pleading, and filled with a sadness that was impossible to ignore. One tale, told by a fisherman driving home late, describes picking her up near mile marker 88. He claimed she climbed silently into his truck, staring out the window without speaking. When he asked where she was headed, she finally whispered, "Home." But before he could ask another question, she was gone. The passenger seat empty, the door still locked. Whether ghost story or hallucination born of fatigue, these encounters piled up. Enough that even the police grew tired of hearing them. To this day, locals say if you drive the highway between Islamorada and Marathon late at night, you may see her. A teenage girl, thumb out, eyes glistening in the glow of your headlights. Some warn never to stop. Others claim that if you pass her by, you will feel a coldness linger in your car, as though she has slipped inside anyway, waiting in silence. As for the real Emily Reyes, she remains on the official list of Florida's missing persons. Her case is unsolved, her body never found, her fate never explained. But ask those who drive the lonely highway after midnight, and they will tell you the same thing: she is still there. Still searching for the ride that will finally take her home. Case 5. The Hotel Disappearance. Key West is filled with hotels that seem more like relics than businesses. White balconies draped in bougainvillea, hallways echoing with the faint sound of ceiling fans, and antique furniture polished by countless hands. They promise charm and nostalgia, but some rooms hide darker stories. In 1995, a businessman named Charles Whitmore checked into one of the oldest hotels in downtown Key West. Charles was 49, a financial consultant from Atlanta. Known for his discipline and order, he had come to the island for a conference but extended his stay for a weekend of rest. His coworkers joked that it was out of character. Charles was not the kind to relax. The hotel staff remembered him clearly. He arrived on a Friday afternoon, politely declined help with his bags, and carried them to his second-floor room overlooking the courtyard. He was seen later that evening in the hotel bar, sipping a single drink before retiring early. Everything about him seemed routine. The next morning, housekeeping knocked on his door. No response. They assumed he was out, perhaps exploring the island. But when night came, and his bed remained untouched, concern began to grow. On Sunday, when Charles missed checkout, the staff entered his room. What they found has baffled everyone since. His suitcase was neatly placed in the closet. His clothes, carefully folded. On the desk sat his laptop, still open, displaying a half-written email to a colleague. His wallet, watch, and keys rested on the nightstand. Even his shoes were aligned side by side on the carpet, as though waiting for him to step back into them. But Charles was gone. Police scoured the hotel. No one had seen him leave. No cameras captured his exit. The only trace of activity was a room keycard used at 11:47 p.m. the night he arrived. After that, nothing. Searches extended beyond the building. The streets were canvassed, the harbor checked, guest lists at other hotels cross-referenced. No sign. It was as if he had stepped into his room and vanished. Into the air itself. Rumors began to swirl. Some guests claimed to hear knocking sounds from his room in the nights following his disappearance. 3 sharp knocks, repeated, though no one was inside. Others swore they saw movement in his window, a shadow passing by, though the room had been locked and sealed. Housekeepers reported feeling sudden cold spots in the hall outside, or hearing the faint sound of typing when they walked past his door. The hotel, eager to maintain its reputation, dismissed such claims as imagination. But the whispers grew louder. Key West has long carried tales of restless spirits. Some say Charles became one of them, another soul claimed by the island's darker undercurrents. Others insist there was foul play. A hidden passage in the old building. A crime concealed behind its charm. The strangest theory ties his case to others before him. Records show at least 3 unexplained disappearances linked to the same hotel dating back to the 1930s. Guests who checked in left behind belongings, but never checked out. Always in the same wing, always under circumstances that defied explanation. To this day, visitors ask about room 214, the room Charles last entered. Some claim to hear typing when the lights go out, the sound of keys striking in a rhythm that does not match any laptop now. Others swear they wake in the night to see a man standing by the desk, shoulders hunched, writing a letter that never gets finished. Charles Whitmore's name remains on Florida's missing persons list. His case is open, unsolved, and as chilling as the night he disappeared. The hotel still welcomes guests. They smile at check-in, hand over the keys, and say nothing of the man who walked in once and never walked out again. And if you find yourself there, lying awake in the silence of an old Key West room, listen closely. You might just hear the faint sound of typing, continuing a message that will never be sent. The ocean, the streets, the boats, the highway, the hotel, 5 disappearances, each separated by years, by circumstances, by settings. A diver who vanished into the reefs. A young couple who stepped off Duval Street and never returned. A sailor lost from his boat, leaving only a journal line behind. A runaway teen who blurred into legend. And a businessman who checked into a hotel and vanished into thin air. At first, these stories feel disconnected, random tragedies scattered across the map of the Florida Keys. But when you listen closely, when you allow yourself to step back, a pattern emerges. Because in each story, the same thread appears. People vanish here, not in the way of big cities, where violence leaves evidence, or wilderness, where nature swallows without hiding. In the Keys, disappearances carry silence. Rooms left untouched. Cars waiting in their lots. Meals half finished. Emails unwritten. It is as if the lives of these people were paused mid-sentence. What makes it even more disturbing is how these vanishings mimic the history of the Keys themselves. This chain of islands has always been a place of disappearances. Centuries ago, entire ships were dragged into the reefs, their crews never seen again. Pirates captured sailors, selling them into slavery or tossing them into the sea. Hurricanes swept through with walls of water, taking towns and lives with them, leaving behind nothing but stories. And then there are the whispers of curses. Old Bahamian settlers once said the islands were thin places, where spirits walk freely. Indigenous stories spoke of restless waters, hungry for offerings. Even modern residents half joke that the Keys are alive, that the islands choose who stays and who vanishes. Each case echoes this. Tom Delaney, the diver, may have been lured by a phantom light in the sea. Michael and Sarah, the young couple, lost in an invisible pocket of Duval Street. Richard Hanley, pulled from his boat by something circling beneath. Emily Reyes, still thumbing for a ride, her spirit unable to leave the highway. And Charles Whitmore, trapped inside a hotel room that refuses to give him back. Different stories, the same outcome. The Keys claim them. And the most unsettling part, none of these are isolated. Talk to the locals long enough, and you will hear more. A fisherman who vanished, his gear left neatly stacked on the dock. A bartender who walked home after closing and was never seen again. A family that abandoned their rental house overnight, food still warm on the table. None made the news beyond the islands, but they live on in whispers, in warnings. Some believe there is a rational explanation. Smugglers, criminals, predators, hiding in paradise. The Keys, after all, sit on the edge of law and water, easy to slip away, easy to hide what you do not want found. Others believe in something darker, something woven into the land and sea itself. Perhaps it is both. Perhaps the Keys, with their isolation, attract danger and then magnify it. Perhaps human hands and restless spirits both play their part. But when you walk through Key West at night, past the bars of Duval, or drive the lonely bridges with nothing but water stretching out into blackness, the question is unavoidable. Why here? Why do people vanish in a paradise that should be filled with joy, not silence? Maybe the answer is hidden in the waves, or locked inside an old hotel room, or waiting at a mile marker on a highway under the stars. Maybe it will never be found. But one thing is, certain paradise has a shadow. And in the Florida Keys, that shadow never lets go. The Florida Keys. To most, it is the promise of paradise. Clear water, painted sunsets, and streets alive with music. But beneath the surface, another truth pulses. This is a place where silence lingers, where shadows stretch long, and where some who arrive never leave. 5 lives, 5 stories, 5 vanishings that still haunt these islands. Tom Delaney, the diver who chased a light into the depths. Michael and Sarah Turner, who walked out of a bar and into oblivion. Richard Hanley, whose boat drifted back without him. Emily Reyes, the runaway teen who became a ghost on the highway. And Charles Whitmore, The businessman who checked into a hotel room that would not release him. Their names are real. Their families still carry the weight of absence. Their stories are etched into the atmosphere of the Keys like scars on coral. And while each case is unique, together they whisper the same message. Paradise can be dangerous. The Keys are a place where joy and dread sit side by side, where laughter fades into silence, and where mysteries endure long after the sun sets. Some will tell you these vanishings were crimes unsolved but explainable. Others will insist they were accidents, tragedies magnified by the unforgiving sea. And then there are those who believe in something older, something intangible, the idea that the Keys themselves hold power, a hunger that sometimes demands a toll. The truth may never be known, but next time you find yourself on Duval Street at midnight, or driving US 1 when the world around you has fallen silent, or staring into the black water where the reef drops away into nothingness, remember these stories. Remember the names. And remember how easily the line between paradise and nightmare can blur. Because in the Florida Keys, disappearances are not just history. They are present. And perhaps they are waiting. What do you think? Are these vanishings the work of human hands, crime, smuggling, murder? Or is there something older at work, something darker, woven into the very bones of the islands? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have ever been to the Keys, tell us, did you feel it too, that strange heaviness in the air when the sun goes down? If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for the next journey into the unknown. We bring you tales of darkness, mystery, and the unexplained every week. And remember, sometimes the most terrifying places are not the ones far away, but the ones dressed in paradise. Good night.